All that plus Deirdre Imus, Jedediah Bila, Ralph Reed here in studio. Greg Gutfeld's coming up. Thank you. Joining me now with more reaction, our Great American panel from the Faith and Freedom Coalition. Ralph Reed is with us. Also Fox News contributor, Jedediah Bila, and New York Times bestselling author, Deirdre Imus. By the way, congrats. You have your brand new book out, which I have blurbed, Awakening, How America Can Turn from Economic and Moral Destruction Back to Greatness. Amen. We need it.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Sean.
We're going to talk a little bit more about this in the second segment. Let's start with this plane. 10 days, planes don't go missing, transponders don't get shut off, the direction of the plane, the altitude shifts that we're reading about, none of this happens. Why is this happening here? And we have no answers 10 days later.
I don't know, but I'm scared. I mean, here I am, just a civilian, right? We have no information 10 days later. I don't believe it all, though. I don't believe our government really doesn't know anything. I'm not buying that either. And I do think maybe...
I'm not conspiratorial. I think they know more than they're telling us.
Of course, they always know more. So,
they always do.
And why hasn't Obama even made a statement, or why isn't he? So that is, to me, suspicious.
He's busy putting his brackets together. Cut the guy some slack.
Meanwhile, he makes a comment about, he's defending himself because everybody's making fun of him wearing mom jeans.
He was wearing mom jeans. I mean, let's be honest. Right. Would you put Don in those? Never. Never. If that cowboy is wearing those jeans, forget it. He loses his man card. Period. All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have to be careful because you have families that are watching this and had loved ones on that flight and are very concerned. So they can't just come out and say, well, it might be this. They have to be sure before they make a statement.
They have to be
because
sure.
You have people waiting on their every word, trying to see, is there hope that these people are still alive, trying to get answers and get closure. So I feel like if they're going to come out with something that's going to come from the government and be official, people view that as official. Then
what about General McInerney suggesting that maybe this plane could have landed in a place like Pakistan? Is that possible?
I think at this point you can't rule anything in or out. But what's really frightening, Sean, is to think about the fact that we're now 13 years after September 11th, 12 and a half, 13 years. And you've got people with stolen passports boarding international flights.
I agree with you.
And we're now told by our security agencies that more than 2/3 of the countries on this planet are at risk of that kind of conduct. Yeah. It is amazing to me that after the screw-ups, intelligence and otherwise, that led to September 11th, that we still don't have that sharing of information.
I mean, what if they are planning, they've landed it somewhere, say there was a military pilot or person that knew how to fly under the radar like that, landed somewhere. I know it does sound crazy, but what if, and then they're planning on using that against us or someone else? That's why we do have to know what happened.
We can only make comments based on what we are being told. We're told that the altitude shifted.
Nothing, really.
We're being told the transponders were turned off, communications to the plane were turned off. We're being told that the altitude shifts were dramatic and that it flew for hours and hours
but
after.
Still, we don't know where it is.
But we don't know what direction. Here it could have gone here, there.
I think at this point it looks a heck of a lot more like a hijacking or an inside job or a pilot committing suicide and taking people down than a mechanical error.
Meaning what?
Meaning that I think the pilot flew it into the ground, flew it into the sea, into the Indian Ocean.
That's what I think as well, based on what we have right now.
I think that's a potential issue. I think another potential issue, Sean, and as somebody who flies internationally myself, I would love to tell you that these cockpits are truly secure.
They're not.
But on an international flight, if a pilot comes out to use the restroom,
let these two girls from Australia in the cockpit in 2011.
And all they do on those international flights is the flight attendant puts a cart.
That's all they do.
That's it.
That's it.
And that's not enough. So
one person would invite people as Don.
You're horrible.
I'm horrible.
No, but even if people are blaming the pilot without not knowing too. That's not really fair. But at the same time, if he did, don't you think something would have come up in the water if it went in the water
even
somewhere?
Though he was, quote, he says democracy's dead, he goes to the trial. If that turns out to be true, I'm worried about his state of mind 7 hours before he got into that cockpit.
It also brings up the question, can we prevent everything? Are we in a position where we can, even if we look in advance, could we have prevented something like this or another instance? I mean, we're not all powerful. We can't do everything and be everywhere.
All right, we got a great debate. We continue with our great American panel. All right, right in your wheelhouse. Your brand new book is out, Awakening, How America Can Turn from Economic Moral Destruction Back to Greatness. Look, the one thing is I find liberals, they wanted to get Duck Dynasty off the air. I've defended Bill Maher's vile comments for years. Nobody's saying boycott HBO. Turn the dial. Don't watch. Don't listen.
Well, Sean, I hate to sound like a prophet, but I talk about Maher in the book. And I talk about some of his vile and hateful comments in the context of attacks on Christians being the last acceptable form of bigotry left in our culture. Can you imagine if somebody on a network had said that about African Americans, had said that about Latinos, had said that about women? They would have been off the air. But this is somebody who has compared the Catholic Church to the Taliban. He has said that Christians suffer from a neurological disorder. And what really bothers me, Sean, is that in Hollywood, in popular culture, it's okay to ridicule, to denigrate, and to demean people whose only crime is to believe in the Bible and to care for others.
He says this, he never apologizes. You went through this with your husband, with Don. He apologized. He said he's sorry repeatedly, even after he was fired. You both went and met with the girls from Rutgers. I don't like, we live in America now where they want to get rid of the word bossy.
Right.
I mean.
Well, that's ridiculous, that whole thing with bossy.
Yeah.
I'm not a proponent of that. I'm fine with the word bossy.
Yeah, so
What's wrong with being bossy sometimes?
You're bossy.
You're bossy. You're more bossy than me.
You're more bossy than me. All right.
Why should he apologize? I mean, that's what he believes. The good thing about this country is that you can have these two very different visions and they can coexist. And the free market does speak for itself oftentimes. If somebody says something that you don't like, people do change the channel and those shows do go off the air.
But there's a whole network out there designed to fire people whose political views you disagree with.
True, but we can't be part of that because we actually, at least I can speak for myself, I actually believe in free speech and diversity of thought. So I want Bill Maher to be able to get on TV and say whatever it is that he wants.
I defend his First Amendment right to say it. But I think, what if you took out the things that he said about Christians and said that about Jews? And the only thing,
Muslims?
Or anybody else. And all I'm saying is that rhetorical violence and deliberately demeaning people and stigmatizing people usually precedes marginalizing them in society. And all I'm saying is, he was fired from ABC. I'm not saying he doesn't have a right to say it, but HBO doesn't have to.
No, but that's also why he's on HBO, because he says the F word all night too. And I mean, I actually used to find him pretty funny. And
he's gotten angry.
I'll still watch him, but it's more he's just on this hate bandwagon, really. He does these
people aren't applauding though. If you listen to that when he's talking about God and saying terrible things, his own audience isn't applauding. There's dead silence. So people are listening, and more than half the country's religious. They don't agree with him, but it's his right to say it.
But still, you do have to admit some of it, even though you might not like him, Sean, he is funny. His show isn't meant to be totally serious.
Politically Incorrect, I thought was a much funnier show.
That was a funny show.
All right. There's Ralph's book in bookstores everywhere. Coming up next tonight, right here on Hannity.